Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to Sami, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Look, I'm going to start by saying to you, Hammer, that out of three of you, the other two being Clarence and Courtney Michelle, that you have the most excuse for your stance because you're the youngest. You still don't have enough of an excuse to qualify because you've been in our space long enough to where you've heard why we believe what we believe about SYSBM, SYSMB, which is Save Yourself Muslim Brother, Passport Bros, Passport Gang, and IBMOR, which is Introspective Black Men on Reform, who actually are quite similar to you, except they say leave the Western black woman alone for good reason. I am not going to blame you for things that you could not possibly know about ADOS or FBA culture, because if your parents are not multi-generational African American, then it's not your fault. Just like you would not blame me for things I don't know about your parents and your culture. And I don't know which linguistic group from which your parents come, but you wouldn't blame me for things I couldn't know. As harsh as I'm going to be on you, I'm going to refrain from that because that's just in the interest of fairness. And I am required to be fair according to what I believe. Clarence, you are at least 13. I forgot exactly how much older, but you are older than he is, and certainly by over a decade. This means that your excuses are in the negative. In order for you to have no excuse, somebody would have to give you a few of them. You know mother cuss word well better than he does. As ADOS and older than him, why saving the community can't be done. Courtney Michelle, you were closer to my age, and I'm in my middle or late 40s. I can't believe that you are actually telling black men to save the community. You have fewer excuses than Clarence. So this means if you have no excuses, somebody would have to come and give you even more than what Clarence would need. You're running a larger deficit. Seriously. Here's the deal. In my hometown, my childhood nemesis T grew up in the same Huxtable neighborhood as me. Between T and me, there is now peace, but friendship there could never be. Even today. T was a bitch-ass coward. He may be different now, but it doesn't matter. Back when we were coming up, he was a bitch-ass coward, and everybody could see it. In 8th grade, he chased after a 3rd grader to beat him up. And he was stopped by that 3rd grader's older brother, another 8th grader. 3 years later, he had a fight in his driveway. And he thought he was going to win that fight easily, but when he found that this guy he thought he was going to beat easily was going to really put up a fight, he called on their mutual friends to come and break them up. I was not only there, I'm the guy that he fought both times. So I'm only telling you about the fights I know. Now, I never saw him fight anybody else, and here's why. He gave up. He would run away or talk his way out of fights with anyone else. Except for 2 fights. One he didn't get into, but he tried to get into. The guy was much smaller than him. And another time I heard about him fighting a guy that was, 2 years younger than us. In my hometown, on the Gulf Coast of the United States, and in all the neighboring hometowns, there is a hard and fast rule. If you are a bitch-ass, pussy-ass, punk-ass, coward-ass nigga, women don't give you a chance unless they're ugly. This guy got more attention from more fine women than anybody else did the same age, at least in the black population, for several counties. They gave him a pass. I'm the guy to whom he surrendered, threw in the towel, asked our mutual friends to come in and break us up. I'm that dude. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm not walking around hating him today because the nigger community of our hometown gave him a pass. I'm walking around today hating the nigger community of my hometown because they gave him a pass. Like I said, he may be a regular normal man today. I don't know and don't care. But I know that the nigger community of our hometown was hypocritical for that. And it's the hypocrisy I don't forgive. Now, if me, being a black Muslim today, if I am required to not forgive other non-black Muslims for their hypocrisy when it comes to race relations, fine. I'm not going to forgive the nigger community of our hometown for hypocrisy. And you understand why I keep on calling them the N-word instead of calling them the black community. I say this for a reason. The nigger community is this hypocritical nationwide. That's why R. Kelly was as respected as he was for as long as he was.
Scarecrow Beats.
It never stopped. We have put intellectual, thinking, literate black men on trial every goddamn fucking day of their lives in our communities. And as I stated, I grew up in the Huxtable neighborhood. The black population of our hometowns put the males mostly of our neighborhood on trial, endlessly, never stopping. Not just me, but others from the same neighborhood. But certainly though me, because there was also the phenotype to add to that. They did this to another guy as well. I don't have to forgive this stuff, and nobody does. I was not really the smartest kid. I was a good reader, good with languages. I was smart enough, but because of my phenotype, I was assumed to be smarter than I actually was. And so then I would catch it based on phenotype and perceived intelligence, but others that were just simply intelligent or wore glasses, they would also catch it. My man Black Johnson would have really caught it if he hadn't been a DJ. And he didn't deserve any of it, and I'm glad that he didn't. But you know what did happen? Fast forward to college. I went to college. Y'all know Morehouse. Well, my audience knows Morehouse. You three that I'm addressing in this one didn't know. You don't listen to me, you're not subscribers, and that's okay. But I went on to Morehouse. He went to college not too far away. T wound up being chosen one weekend by Brandy, the singer. It was some, I don't know if it was a basketball or a football game. And Brandy Norwood chose this nigga. And they vanished for a weekend. I've mentioned on some previous recordings how everybody from my hometown talked about this. He showed up the next Monday on campus, laughing with new clothes on, telling everybody, "Hey, nigga, smell my finger." What that tells you is the hypocrisy of the community you want to save. Everybody has a story like this. I'm just telling you mine, but everyone's got it. You have it. You may have more stories about this than I do. We can't save the community. The community is plagued by NSV, nigger software virus. There are laptops, literal laptops and desktop computers that have viruses in them, and so many viruses in them, so virulent and so numerous that you cannot install a single antivirus on them, because every installation attempt will be interrupted. It'll fail. It will not succeed. You will not get the antivirus on, and the virus will stay on, and the computer will remain as unreliable and as sick as it is. And you can't put other transferable forms of media on these things, because then they'll just be wiped out and spread the virus when you put them on other desktops or laptops. That's what the community you're telling us to save is like. One of those laptops with negative software, so negative in quality. I know how I sound, and I know how I'm pronouncing it, and I mean it. This negative software is so bad and so evil and vile that anything that is good for it gets wiped out before it can even be installed. We can't save it. Let me tell you how bad it was just in my hometown. As we progressed in age and I went on through college, and then got out and had to look for a job like everybody else did. Nothing that was just me. This nigga T never worked a day in his life. Do you know what? Forget about what he did. That was actually fairly smart as a business move. It was normal as a business move. It could have failed or succeeded. But do you know what the nigga community of my hometown guaranteed success for him if he did? So he did it. He rented venues and threw parties and charged admission and ran little miniature bars at these parties. And he could make 10 grand at a party. Do this 3 times a year and make 30 grand a year. And not have to work the rest of the year. So he would do it about 4 times a year and make 40 grand. Now what he did was fairly smart. Somewhat risky, but fairly smart. The problem was that the nigger community of our hometown, the same nigger community that would have guaranteed failure for any other black entrepreneur, guaranteed this niggaboo success. You know, nigga jigaboo. Why do I call them these racial terms? Well, I'm actually calling most of our community these terms because that's how they view themselves. I'm not saying these things because I'm a racist. I'm saying this because they actually take it as a badge of honor when you call them this. Call them African, they might fight you, they might not. Depends. But there's a chance they'll think you mean it as an insult and will fight you, but you call them a spear-chucking, porch monkey ass, jigaboo nigger, and then they take it as a badge, take it as several badges of honor. Unless, of course, you're my shade when you do it. Now, that's different. And as some of them learn through my knuckles, you're going to have to tolerate that shit from me too if you tolerate it from anybody else, because I don't tolerate being singled out. He would rent out venues. When he rented venues out and threw parties, because bitches validated him, niggas validated him, the men did. When the men validated him, strangely enough, one of the things that was funny about that is that they were willing to spend money. They did not sit up and look at what he was trying to do and then say, you know what? We're not going to give this dude our money. They didn't say that. If any one of us had done the same thing, all of these niggas would have been outside in the parking lot taking up a collection to give to one so that he could go in and open the fire escape and let everybody in that way without paying. Niggas would have stolen from the bar and poured drinks in without paying for them. The entire nigger community of our hometown and neighboring towns would have made sure that this would not have been a commercial success. Who do you think you are, nigga, charging us a cover fee? If you were a real nigga and true to the game, you throw this party for free. But he got to charge and get paid and collect from large numbers of people, including women. Because he was, kind of tall. He was cute to women, still is to women. And he could dance and he can play basketball, so it's okay for him to be an openly cowardly bitch ass nigga. That's strange. The community upheld him, and as I stated, he may have changed with years, you hope so, but the community does not care. So why the hell do they give this nigga a pass? Because they're niggas. And he had that nigga software virus deep, virulent, and so they recognized that and rewarded him for it. Fast forward today, he's still kind of a perpetual kid. I know that much. But he's doing what he does and he makes money from it. That makes sense. But the community is not teaching this nigga a lesson. Whereas if you were an intellectual at all, the community would teach you some very harsh lessons. My man Black Johnson, even now, he got social credit for being a DJ, but to actually make any money being a DJ, he has to now go and not even advertise to black folks because they'll say, hook us up. So white folks throw a party and they want to hear rap and reggae, and he brings his stuff and DJs. And you want us to go and save these same communities that mistreat you and me. You and us. We can't save them. See, Black Johnson did eventually open up his own business. Black Johnson and his business partner had a very good plan. They printed up a big portrait of a white guy. They printed it up off the internet, high quality. So it looked like just a big photograph. They got a frame for it. They put it on the wall behind the cash register. So it looked like some, unknown corporate looking white guy with a suit owned the business, and they were just working it. That was good because this way, when ussens would walk in there, they wouldn't ask for hookups. They would buy what they wanted. His business partner decided, you know what? I want to impress some bitches. So he took the business credit card and bought shit to impress some bitches and then told these bitches that they in fact owned the business. Well, then the word got out that it was these two black men from our hometown that owned the business. So before you know it, they had a lot of visitors, but no sales because everybody was trying to get the hookup or trying to negotiate ridiculously low prices, well below profit margins. Come on, man, hook me up. Man, that's too expensive for this. The business went under because his business partner couldn't fuck the shuck up and keep the secret from women. And you want us to go back and save this community that does not let anyone get ahead. Any black men that come up in the community and then get ahead in life didn't do so because of the community. They did so in spite of it. And I don't have to grow up in one of these communities to know. There are elements in the community, usually guys, that would protect some of the younger guys because they had potential. O'Shea talked about that and he was right. But see, because there are decent guys in there that might even be doing some gangbang or doing things they got to do to survive and will protect another young guy so he doesn't have to do it, those individuals are worth the help if we can find them and reach back. But the community ain't even gonna listen. See, a fairly long drive down the highway from us in New Orleans is Terrence Gangsta Williams. I forgot with whom he used to rap. I can't remember, but Terrence Gangsta Williams still has to go by the nickname Gangsta. You see, Terrence Gangsta Williams has a regular job with a break room somewhere, but somewhere he punches in and out. And that's all fine and dandy, but he also gets to hit the lecture circuit from time to time to give motivational speeches to the youth somewhere along the Gulf Coast and probably inland as well. The problem is that in order for him to have these speaking engagements and collect those fees, he must retain the nickname Gangsta. But he's not a gangster anymore. And that's because those who book him for these know that if he stops going by gangster, the kids won't listen. That right there is bad enough. Don't say, well, he goes and talks to them and maybe some kid is inspired to do well. Don't say that. He has to say and show that he is a former street nigga. Stereotype and idness for the kids to listen. Because they won't listen to anybody that was not a former idness. Therefore, they don't know what to do except try to live long enough to be a former idness. That's the inspiration they get. Not to sidestep this shit. And by the way, I'm gonna let the Muslims know, sorry in advance, I'm finna cuss. They don't come out inspired to not be in idness ever and say, man, fuck this negative ass nigger baboon culture. Something straight out of a white supremacist wet dream for us. No, they come out, you know what? I know I'm gonna have to thug it, but one day I'm gonna be like him. I gotta thug it out first. No, the fuck you don't. And no one's telling them this. Because those who would tell them this are the ones who didn't do that shit first, and they're not allowed to say a damn fucking thing to these kids. You gotta go through it first. Why? Who's telling these kids that you gotta go through it first before you can tell them not to? I can tell you it ain't grown ass men telling them this shit. How we gonna save it? Listen, let me first start by telling you, Hammer and CJ, you and I don't have the authority to save the community. Men don't have authority in the community. Men are required to do the heavy lifting, and most men are going to be asked to do the heavy lifting and not get any benefits from the community. Most of us men aren't even allowed to become biological fathers in the community. Keep that in mind as I move forward with this. Of the three of you that I've mentioned, Courtney Michelle, you're the one that would have the most authority to tell the rest of the gynocracy to change the culture so that we could save it. And you lost that when you had the maturity and the decency to apologize to a man you had driven off a long time before. You know better than I do what kind of pick-me bitches and light-skinned bitches you were called. I'm not saying that you're these things. I'm saying that's what other women called you because you showed some decency to a black man. That means you lost it. It's similar to what happens in my religious community, Muslims, when a white guy or white woman comes along and joins the faith and joins the brotherhood and sisterhood. What happens is that the non-black Muslims in the mosque are just overwhelmed and they get giddy. It's like an angel came down from the heavens and said, yes, the religion's real. That's how they act. Meanwhile, we Muslims that are black are ready to welcome them as new Muslims, but we don't extend white privilege to them because they don't even want it. They don't come for that. We know why they're coming in. They're coming in because they're convinced, just like us. But the Indian, the Arab, and the Pakistani, and the Afghan, and the Iranian Muslim, well, they're looking and saying, mashallah, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is coming in and accepting, or the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy is coming in and accepting. So for the white woman, she gets marriage proposals within about 3 hours usually. For the white guy, it'll be about 3 months. But here's the thing. The non-black, non-white Muslims think that this white person's going to come in every time they make the same mistake of thinking the same thing. This white person's going to come and accept Islam, then go back to the white community and tell them about Islam, and they're all going to accept it because it's coming from one of their own. And then all the tension based on religion will be over. That's what they're thinking. Every time it's not what happens. Every time what happens is that the white person who comes in and accepts Islam is now seen as a traitor by the rest of the white society. They can't go back. They're written out of the will. They've got no privilege or power to extend on behalf of the Muslim community. Their white privilege is now limited to the Muslim community. And that's not even why they came, as I stated. And so they think that This is a great leap forward. I mean, the non-black, non-white Muslims think it's going to be a great leap forward for Islam, when in fact, no. Clarence, Hammer, I want you guys to understand that when Courtney did the right thing that time, it was over a year ago, when she did that, showed decency and maturity, that's what happened to her amongst the gynocracy you're telling us to go back and save. She lost authority with him because they saw her as a traitor for her very decency. You can't go back and save some shit like that. So you can say, save the community, black man, all you want to. First, we must SYSBM. Save yourself, black man. We must obey that. Then it is SYCBM. Start your community, black man. We must obey that next. And we can't do that with the Western black woman. The ones that don't mean any harm have to be in hiding. Keep that in mind. So we ain't gonna find them. Okay? That's not gonna happen. So we gotta save ourselves, then start a new community. And if that community winds up needing salvation, then we can work to save it because we might be ahead of it. But the community that you all want us to go back and save can't be saved. None of us are allowed. Even the women themselves are not allowed to try to remove the nigger software virus. It's not allowed. It will fight tooth and nail. The women that decide to do this will be fought against tooth and nail and beaten into hiding and silence, especially if they're young. See, what Courtney Nicole did, she did at, just 2 years younger than her current age. If she did this while she was young and before she was a mom, they would have killed her. They would have tried to kill Crimson Cure if she was younger. If Melanie King was young, especially her, if she had her newly bought looks 20 years ago and she did that, they would have gone after her to kill her too. Because they would have said, this youth and this beauty and this good sense is too good of a deal for the black man. We will kill anyone that offers it to him. That's how bad it gets. And you want us to go back and save that. We can't. We're not allowed. Let me tell you some more about my hometown. See, we got a pro-black that thinks the same way. He's a former Idnis. He shot 2 niggas in self-defense. Now, he got off because it was self-defense, but he was still living that street life. They were going to rob him and killed him. He got a misdemeanor because he wasn't supposed to have the pistol. So he's a former Idnis. He's tall. Women like him. He used to play women like looking at him. He used to play basketball. But he really is pro-black. He done changed his name legally. All that stuff. He teaches a type of self-defense. He lives in his office because the black community promises you poverty when you become for them. And women won't give this dude a first chance. Forget his height. I think he's 6'1". Forget the protective capacity this man has. Forget all that. He's pro-black. He's now seen as one of the community eunuchs. His job is to raise other men's kids. Guys that are not former Idnis, but still Idnis, get to sire the kids. He must feed the kids. These black women, by their own confessions and admissions, based on what they would have done back when he was in Idnis, they should be lining up to fuck this dude. Have his babies. He should get to be one of the breeders, but since he's decided to be somewhat responsible, not even somewhat, but quite responsible and moral, that right there means he's now slated to be a community eunuch. It's a demotion. And you think we can go back and say, He can't go back and save the community. He has pretty much doomed himself to die childless. He's been single since I went back for one of those visits and saw him. I'm trying to remember, was it 2015 or 2016? Can't remember, but 20... Yeah, I think 2015 was when I saw him. Yeah. First time I saw him. He's been single since then. And you think we can go back and say, how you gonna save anybody that says that once you agree to save him, you must be single and childless? And that's the end of your genetic line. Literally, the women of the community are breeding against being saved. You can't be pro-black and then pass that on to your own kids. My parents did that with my brother and me, but we were already born when they became pro-black. And my parents made the sacrifices. They sacrificed a lot of their leisure, a lot of time with each other. They sacrificed a part of my childhood with my consent, of course. And they sacrificed a lot of my brother's childhood, not meaning to do so, but they did. And he was too young to even consent to that or prepare for it. They got burned out from that shit. They had to. A lot of them who questioned my parents' loyalty because my parents would try to keep others from going to jail for doing stupid shit like marching without a permit and blocking traffic and stuff like that. They would then question my parents' loyalty. That wasn't radical enough. Some of these same niggas later turn out to be taking bribes from the pro-white or the white man's opposition. Yeah, no joke. Taking bribes. They'd be able to send their kids to some really nice schools or, buy a nice house. Man, what did you do to get this? Well, you remember that march I didn't go to because a few of them admitted that this was happening. And they said we even know who else took bribes. And sometimes the bribes were as simple as one vacation. And you think we can go back and save this? You don't want to admit and understand that they will do any and everything in their power. The white interference is not even necessary. You all are sitting up and telling us, and yet and still, the only way to save the community is to leave that community you want us to save and start another one. There's nothing else that can be done. See, we have three options. Get a passport and go to Latin America. Highly likely we'll wind up with Afro-Latinos there. That's one option. The second one, get a passport, go to the continent, exclude Lagos, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Nairobi, and some parts of the north, of course. But, still get a traditional continental sister, or get a passport, go to Southeast Asia where they actually prefer black men over white men, and get a traditional submissive woman from there. Now, I'm not making up what I said. I've observed this preference from Southeast Asian women myself. Others have observed it, and on Andre Brooks, you will see a Thai wife of a black man. Tell him, don't let black husbands come to Thailand by themselves. Oh yeah. I've eyeballed Southeast Asia, but I want to go and live there, somewhere there with my wife, my black wife. And one of the reasons, and look, I saw it. I saw that myself. My friend, when I went to visit Malaysia the first time, my friend set up a profile for me on a Malaysian matrimony site just to show me something. He had a photograph of me from years ago. He remembered my birthday. He set it up. He then said to me later, listen, man, go to this website log in with this username. Here's the password. Check it out. I went in. He had set one up for me. Bunch of women had already answered. 28 had answered. He said to me 28 have answered. By the time I copied and pasted the website and then the username and put in the password, it had gone from 28 to 36. He didn't know that I was talking to someone about marriage already, my current wife. He didn't know this. So he wasn't trying to mess things up for me and her. He didn't know I was talking to her about marriage. I had to delete it later. But you had a bunch of women in the city in which I was visiting hitting me up. Now, let's be honest. You were not going to find attractive black women hitting me up, especially as pale as I am. That wasn't going to happen. But now you got sisters trying to get with white dudes, though. I ain't black enough. I'm insufficiently black, but an outright white is okay. We can't save that community. It's not possible. The community won't let anybody save it. But Southeast Asia is where you got these women that actually prefer black men, even insufficiently black men like me. More so than women on the continent might prefer black men over white. I've seen more. I'm not going to go into all of how I know that that's the truth, but I do know. But what do all three options that I mentioned have in common? Passports and traditional submissive women. We can't build a community and populate it unless we do these three. I'll tell you that I'm one that'll actually say that even if we get passports, we can't necessarily build a community and populate it in India or Pakistan or Afghanistan or Iran or the Arab countries with non-black Arab women. Just because these are oftentimes Muslim areas. That's not the only reason I'm saying it. It's also just because they're just not really that friendly towards black folks. And the women that do like black men, well, maybe they can get away with saying it, maybe not. Hell, I don't include China and South Korea because they have that white worship. I'm telling you, though, that we cannot go into certain areas thinking we're going to start a community, whereas when we go into Southeast Asia, we can actually start a community of black men who marry local women and raise the kids there, and they can marry each other. We can do that. We're capable. We have the option. We don't have that option in nigga America. And black America is being swallowed by nigga America. Ain't no nice way to put it. I wish there was, but there's not. See, in the Huxtable neighborhood in which I grew up, many of us had cousins that had not yet become Huxtable. When we would go to school, we had to be extra bad sometimes to prove. It's like that comedian, Small Fry is her name, her stage name. She said she's the daughter of a preacher, and she said, it makes it even harder because every time somebody else do something bad, you got to do something worse. They smoke weed, you got to smoke crack because you the preacher's kid. That's what she said. Now, it was funny, it was a joke, but that's what it was like for us. So, unfortunately, what has happened is that the Huxtable kids haven't remained Huxtable. I wish we had, but we haven't. I mean, hell, I didn't make enough money to remain Huxtable. And I was on the straight path. Straight-laced, I didn't get in any trouble. I just couldn't make enough money. I'm a heterosexual, outspoken black man. Insufficiently black for the mating, dating, and marriage market, but still black enough to face job discrimination. And I couldn't stay in that class. I had to leave the United States to avoid falling into poverty and probably even homelessness. You see where this is going? And yet you want us to, on top of having to fight to stay middle class and Huxtable in America, go back into the hood and save it. Let's look at what the community even is. How do we know that any part of it is the community? Well, I'll tell you. See, one of the ways that we know that the community is that it is in bad shape and it needs saving. If it's not that, then we don't even know that it's the community. We can't save the community because, frankly, here's what happens. If we do go into a black community that is dangerous and in which there is dysfunction, not just low income, but danger and dysfunction, and we were able to save it, and now it's just low income, but it's safe and not dysfunctional. The safety and the lack of dysfunction would cause it to be disqualified by other black communities as even being a part of the community. The very success of such efforts in one community would result in it not even being considered part of the community anymore. I know, because my neighborhood was not considered part of the black community even after we had made it mostly black. Yeah, did y'all know that? How are you going to save it? Any part you save becomes by definition no longer the community. You can't save that. I'm not going to forgive you all after today for saying this. Because after seeing what goes on with the man, the former Idnis that became pro-black after he got in trouble with the law because he had to shoot some niggas in self-defense. After seeing what he's had to go through. Just the single life and the poverty. Just the childlessness while he's feeding all these other men's kids. Just that by itself is hateful enough, let alone the extra sacrifices that are going to be put on his shoulders. That is a hate message, not SYSBM. Not SYSMB, Save Yourself Muslim Brother. Not IBMOR, that's actually quite pro-black. Nor Passport Bros, nor Passport Gang. These are not hate messages, but your message of save your community, black men, that's a hate message. Because we don't have a community till we build one abroad. We can't build one in the States. Can't build it in Canada, can't build it in the UK either. Because anything we build that's not Nigga America is going to get swallowed up by Nigga America. So we can't build it there. And what you're saying is continue to sentence yourself to the same single life and childlessness to which Nigga America wants to sentence us. Because we're not niggas. That's unacceptable. That's a hateful message, even if you didn't mean it as such. And that's why I'm not saying that you are intentionally preaching a hate message, but if you continue doing so after you hear this, you're preaching a hate message. End of. And if there's anybody that is committing treason or treachery against the black community, it is anyone who, knowing why they should not, continues to tell us to go back and suffer. For not only so-called our people, but for the same people that would never suffer a motherfucking thing on our behalf. Because we're not real niggas. Thinking black men, intellectual black men, educated black men have been the most disrespected and driven out. And that's been going on for quite a while now. And it's gotten worse in the 90s. They're the real victims of hate. And Hammer, you want to talk about colorism is real. Nigga, I know that. I look like Vin Diesel with a regular build, with Vin Diesel without all the muscles. That's what whom I most closely represent that everybody would know, to paint a picture of how I look. You think I don't know colorism is real? I've been treated as less than by black women in America, traditionally, consciously and subconsciously, because of colorism and texturism and featureism, despite the fact that I actually got a fairly tropical Macumba na Yabange nose and some equatorial lips. Despite that, it's still the same. We're the ones that got to deal with featureism and colorism. We're actually treated differently based on being too dark or too light. The only difference is that if a man is too dark and a woman doesn't like that, she'll come out and, well, in the 1980s, they would say it if they didn't like a man that was too dark. Even if they liked him, they'd still mistreat him because, you know, they're friends. And then in 1989, that shifted, and then it became light-skinned guys. But they didn't tell us you're too light-skinned. They would just mistreat us and not say why. And I didn't find out until 2001 when I was about to turn 25. I remember that. But that's what it was. So I know about colorism being real. Don't tell us that we need to fix our colorist attitudes towards black women. No. We're not really allowed to be that colorist. And the men who are, generally speaking, have very little education. And the women don't really care about these men being colorist until they become successful, but they're also uneducated. You know, they're usually entertainers. And they'll say some colorist shit, and then women will get in their feelings. That's usually what'll happen. When a guy like me comes along and actually appreciates abundantly melanated sisters, they lose respect. That's the funny thing. So you can sit up and tell us that we need to, and Clarence, you too, you can sit up and tell us that we need to keep it black and be loyal to black women and do so by promising to restrain our dinglings to only them and learn swag and game even if that's what they want. They'll lose respect for that too. Clarence, you've been championing game and dating coaches and that sort of thing. I'm telling you, when a black man comes along and brings substance, she can't recognize game. She can't see game in a man like that. A man could be balling, and it's because he made investments in, let's say, tech. If she finds out that that's how he's balling and it's all legitimate, nothing he says is going to be sharp enough game to her. The fact that he's balling and it's legal is going to give her the idea that this nigga's corny. That's what's going to happen. So if he's balling, Clarence, and he wants to keep her, he's going to have to appear to her to be getting that money illegally. And then this way, whatever he does and says will seem like it's game. Be honest. Don't lie about this. Hammer. If you think being pro-black means that you will restrict your love life to only black women, do you know the best way for a black man to get black women if that's how he feels? If that's what he wants? It is to pretend that he's not going to restrict himself to only black women. Well, you know, I don't really care about color. Whoever follows me the best and treats me the best and backs me up the best is going to be the one that wins. He's got that. A man that says this to black women has more of a chance of being pursued and respected and appreciated by black women that felt they had to compete with other women for him than the guy that comes along and says, no, only you, only black women. They may be relieved to hear a man say that, but they don't respect him. They think he's stupid. And you want us to sit up and say this. Saying this to black women ruins a man's chances with black women, especially attractive ones. I know, I was that dude. Oh, and speaking of colorism, a guy my complexion saying something like that was viewed as really being stupid. by the same women to whom I was promising loyalty. There would have been nothing I could have said after that that would have sounded like game to these women, because that was just dumb on their part. Oh, they love to hear it. Relief, triumph, but no respect after that. Absolutely not. So that being said, we can't save the community reproductively or financially or any other way. We're not going to be allowed. The only thing we're allowed to do is go back, pump in money, do whatever they say and then leave and give no input. That's all we're allowed to do. Raise other men's kids. Feed the kids. Have them over for a pool party. Stuff like that. Let them tear your house up. Because, you know, I'm black, your mama black. That's really what it would come down to. We might be able to grab one guy that really shows potential and mentor him, but that's not something any of us have to do. And if we're not allowed to have our own kids with these same mothers, then why the fuck should we? They got their own dads. Don't say that they don't, because if they don't, and this is going across the board, that means these ladies are only picking guys that won't be there, or they're not letting these guys stay there. It's one of those two. Now I'll let you determine which one it is, because you guys got game, and you know you all are there for black women, so you know which one it is better than I do. But you ain't gonna tell me it's neither one. You ain't gonna tell me it's a bunch of black men just sticking and moving. That ain't what's going on. Because even though it's a few black men that are responsible for a lot of these pregnancies out of wedlock, you know what else is the case? Even those black men don't mind being there for the kids. At least the ones they know they have. This has been borne out in statistics as well. So don't tell me anymore. Don't tell any of us anymore that we owe it to the community to go back and try to save it until we are in charge, until what the fuck we say goes and it is obeyed and not defied. Until that point, we don't owe a motherfucking thing. Matter of fact, a lot of the communities owe us. Some of us are owed by the communities for the shit through which they put us. I didn't grow up in it. And there's some things even I'm owed, not too much, but a little bit. And I can tell you, the nigger communities in my hometown, they owe pretty much every thinking intellectual black man a hell of a lot. But that's another topic for another day. To my regular audience, thank you for listening. And as always, black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual, non-select, no game having power. Because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you again for choosing Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Because the pro-blackest thing you actually can do is what we're doing right now. We hope you keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. And by the way, shouts out to Jesse Veal for the trip that you're about to take with a passport. I ain't gonna say no more than that. Justice forever.